Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another 100K Club interview. It is so exciting to have Mark as the latest individual to join the 100K Club. So first off, welcome, brother. I've seen you for so long in the community, in the group, and you finally reached this important milestone. So congratulations to you for getting here. But today we are here to not just celebrate your success, but also maybe share with others some of the things you've done to specifically get here. So how does it feel to have made $100,000 in profits within a 12-month rolling period?
Thanks, PJ. It's pretty amazing, actually. I mean, understanding that the process you guys have laid forth, if we follow it to the T, I think it works. I mean, I've seen it. It's been a systematic thing that I've been building, and I'm just getting started. So it's very, very exciting. So thanks for doing what you're doing and sharing the knowledge that you share with us day in, day out.
So I want to kind of understand, I always ask members about the logistics of when they join Watch Trading Academy. Did they know a lot about watches before that? So walk us through your watch journey ultimately, like from the beginning of what interested you in watches, at what point did you find Watch Trading Academy, and how did we get here, really?
Sure. So first off, the whole watch thing started with me with a Rolex two-tone Submariner, which I'm actually wearing right now. So interestingly, when I graduated in 2008 with my first master's, my parents got me this watch. And that was really, I went from a Swiss Army to all of a sudden Rolex, right?
That's a big jump.
A huge jump, right? So interestingly, I used to wear that watch, and when I was going through building businesses, every single time I'd wear this watch, everybody would give me a different look. I mean, it was a pleasant look, like he's done something, we better listen to him, something like that. So, and it was interesting, every single meeting I went to, they'd stare at the watch, right? And I'm like, there's something here. And I kind of put it on the back burner, didn't do really much with it. Well, then I stumbled upon Secret Entourage, and I think I signed up as the lifetime member and started listening to courses back then. And through that process, your exotic car hacks was coming up. So I connected with you, and you did the car finder for us, which was amazing. And you found us a car for my wife, which she absolutely loves. So thank you for that. What's interesting, this happened around early 2019. At the time, Alyssa Watcher, which is amazing, she basically said, "Have you tried watch trading?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, I'm not really into watches, and I don't have time. I have this other stuff that I'm doing. I don't have time for this." And she's like, "Well, sign up for part one, see what it's all about," right? So fast forward to today, I think I have all the courses.
What year was that you joined part one?
July 2019.
Okay, so it's been like a good 2 years, like that you've been part of that community.
Yeah, so July 2019, I signed on. I spent, I would say, a comfortable 6 months going through the different courses. And I was afraid. I mean, let me also share this on a daily basis. I'm on Facebook, on all the different groups you guys have on there. So I learned a ton from other members as well, and just seeing everybody and what they're going through. So the camaraderie has just been amazing.
But I like that you were afraid. What were you afraid of? Because this is a very real thing people don't talk about, right? The fear, because it's money we're talking about. But what were you afraid of?
Well, first off, so the process in itself, right? I mean, when you're looking outside in, you're like, what if I do this? What if I get a fake watch, right? What are all these different things that I need to look for, right? And then the other scary part, to be quite frank with you, is wiring somebody money. And every time you wire somebody money, that pop-up comes up on Bank of America that you trust this person, like this money's gone, right? If you send it to the wrong person, it's gone, right?
And you're sending your life away, right? You're like, fine, I got to click it. Like, am I sure I want to do this?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned in one of the videos, it's that meme, right? If the guy sends $500, it's like, it's my life savings, be careful. And then the guy sends 50,000, he's like, a wire sent, right? So I actually shared this with Alyssa a couple months ago. My first time I sent money, it was like 7,200, and I was scared shitless. I'm like, I don't know if this money's gone or if I'm ever going to see it again, right? And then exactly a year later, I was sending 75,000 a month, and I didn't care. I mean, it's like, you see the value of, you basically throw out the net and you see it come back, and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Your mental capacity for risk changes too throughout the year, right?
Exactly. And I think one of the key things, or the key takeaways that I got from your course, is you say protect the downside, right? As long as so if you buy right and you've done your due diligence, I think the rest of it kind of just falls into place. It's the front end, protect your downside, make sure you don't mess that up. And one of the things that you always talk about, and Cal talks about this a lot too, is risk exposure, right? It's really, and if you notice with the spreadsheet that I did, I've tried to build that out, right? So I try to look at my risk, see what I'm in a watch for. And if I lose that, I'm okay. And luckily I haven't lost anything yet. So,
You know, I'm going to talk about your spreadsheet for a second, but before we go there, you brought some really good points out that I want to clarify. So what were you doing at the time you started watch trading? Like what business were you building? What line of work were you in then?
sure. So I still have that. So I have a dispute resolution publication. So that's kind of my life's work. And it's interesting because that's a B2B business. So there's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes, and I seldom talk to, it's not client facing, right? So I seldom talk to anybody. I'm basically sitting in my office here and we're doing a ton of production and distribution and what have you. So it's in the dispute resolution space. You don't really see much happening above the line. The thing I love about watch trading is more of a B2C business, your business to consumer, right? And you're meeting a ton of people. And what's most amazing to me is it's worldwide, right? I'm talking to people from all over the US, Canada, Europe, Australia. Like people fly in to pick up watches, and it's just the relationships and the people you meet is pretty insane. So what I tend to do with my ADHD happening, one day I focus on ADR Times, which is the publication. Most other time I focus on Lido Watch Club, which is the watch side of things. And I'm kind of building the two in tandem. So whenever I get bored with this, I jump into that. Right. And what I've learned with the watch side of things is I try to buy right. And on a daily basis, I'm looking for deals, what have you. I go through this process. I actually have a professional photographer, and I learned the hard way that I'm not a good photographer. So bring in the right person that can do it. And I build that into the deal. So I list a bunch of watches and I just sit back and almost on a daily basis. And again, I learned this from you. You're constantly on the phone, right? On a daily basis, I get people that are messaging me, eBay, Chrono24, past clients. They're reaching out and saying, would you do this or that? Yeah, sure. Why not? You know, so.
If it makes sense, if you make money, why not? You know,
yeah,
you
exactly.
move the inventory and keep recycling the money.
Exactly.
I want to talk about your sheet. And right before we do that, so, you know, you have a very extensive sheet, meaning like I verified the numbers people sent. Usually they send me spreadsheets of what they've done, and then I ask them to verify financial backing those sheets. That's how we kind of, for people that don't know, this is how we kind of welcome people in the club, so that people aren't just sending me random sheets with, you know, magical numbers that appear on a sheet. But one of the things that I liked about your sheet is that it actually took me longer to go through it, because I kept having to understand what the hell the column was, you know, like, because there were so many different columns, so like BCB, you know, risk exposure. And I thought it was really clever because it was different, you know. And so I encourage members right now, if you're watching this, to definitely, you know, connect with Mark, because he has a very distinctive sheet that actually enables him for his own CRM kind of look in how he's been able to kind of gradually change his own mindset through the sheet. You can kind of see that he's basically using the strategies we teach, but he's actually enhancing them through the sheet, because you have a section there. You talked about protecting the downside. So we're going to tie this into the sheet. So I'm a big advocate to always, if you buy right, then it doesn't matter if it sells or not, because it'll always sell at some point. So even if you're stuck with it like 6 weeks, 6 months, who cares? As long as you have the capital to buy other stuff, doesn't matter. You basically have a cool watch, right? So as an example, if I paid, you know, 280,000 for this and it's worth 350,000, then I'll basically say, okay, as long as I don't think it'll be worth less than the 280, then okay, just park the money there, or I'm not going to use the money for anything else, you know? So it doesn't matter. But one of the things that I loved about your sheet is that you can see the mental progression you go through as you enter these numbers, because it gives you reassurance that you're either in the right position or not. What made you come up with that sheet? Like it's a very different sheet than other people's CRM. So I'm just curious, like, was that something you got from a member, from Cal, from who?
No, so thanks for that feedback, PJ. So the sheet, I think you nailed it. It's been a progressive sheet. I mean, over time, it's, first of all, it's on Google Sheets, so it's real time. What I learned from Cal was you want to have that in Google Sheets, so at all times you could, when you're talking to somebody on the spot, you can look it up on your phone. But let me say something before I built that sheet. So I signed on July 2019. It took me about 6 months to learn, and part of that learning was building the WordPress website. I had a team do that for me. But what I also did is I went through all the masterminds from the past couple of years, and I extracted all the data. And basically what I did is every single week you send about 7 watches out. So I looked at the target buy, target sell, and what the margins should be. So I constructed this entire Google Sheet thing where it basically gave me like, under this Panerai, these are the models that historically with the mastermind and everything you guys have put out, these are the ones that I should be looking at. So that was kind of giving me the confidence on what to look for and what to go after. So I constructed this sheet, and I think a couple months ago I abandoned doing that because it kind of gave me the confidence that I started to understand the patterns that you were kind of looking at. And even to today, I mean, 9 o'clock, you send out the new mastermind, right? Or the new weekly deals, top deals of the week. And same thing, every time it's like, okay, it reinforces the pattern or the trend that I think I'm getting, the light going off or on, if you will. But going back to your comment on the sheet itself, it's been a progression. I think Carlos has been very influential. And what's most influential is throughout the year, you do these like temperature checks where you come in and say, okay, we're midway point through the year, like, what are your numbers, right? And some people write out their numbers. Some people are like, here's the screenshot of my sheet, right? And the other thing that also happened is I came in at the tail end of the Rolex course. So I remember Lewis's sheet was pretty extensive. Now, the way he had it set up was completely different. So he was looking at different factors, and the margins were like very, very thin on his stuff, right? And at the time he did like 1 million, which later on we found out the whole backstory. But so I basically took a little bit of Lewis, a little bit of Carlos, a little bit of Cal, a little bit of all these like screenshots here and there, and I kind of constructed my own. Part of my sheet, I have this data and decision dashboard, which is kind of like my KPIs for the year. I have certain goals that I want to hit, and I figure out, okay, this is where I'm at compared to where I need to be. This is how much I'm off. This is where my percentages are. But also over time, through the progression I've gone through, I'm starting to see that, okay, this deal can be juicier and I can broker this. There's no reason to put in the capital for the AP. I can potentially buy it for 2023, sell it. And that's another thing. I think I've learned this from you as well, PJ. I listed a little bit higher. So I'm kind of playing with the market, right? And I've seen this from Camden as well. List a little bit higher, let the market catch up. Obviously, you're anchoring high in somebody's mind. Doesn't mean you're going to get that price, but at least you put that psychological tidbit out there that this is where I want it to be. And then obviously somebody gets it for less. They've got a great deal. That's exactly where I wanted it to be based on my sheet already, right? So it becomes a win-win. And I think it's more a psychological thing than an actual.
Well, sales is definitely psychological more than anything else. And
Right.
I think process is part of that psychology as well, listing and everything else. So,
Right.
You brought up some interesting things about, you said Carlos has been an influence. I see you active in the community, and I see you constantly participating, asking questions. And that one of the things that I think we see as the difference between members who make it to the 100K club and members that do not is the participation is continuous. It's not just sporadic. It doesn't come in a week, then it's off for a month, then it's in a week. And I see the difference between the guys that basically like you that are active on an ongoing basis, even if it's not every day, but it's like every week, meaning you're having something going on every week. And you have the guys that only come in and talk about one watch they're about to buy, then they disappear out of the group, then they come back in a month because they're buying another watch. Like they don't really participate and they don't put their name out there. And one of the things that I really appreciated about you was the fact that you were involved in not just every course we had, but every community we have. And you participated outside of just saying, what should I pay for this? Or am I, is this a good dollar or not? Which is the majority of what people use the group for. What tips do you have for new members? We had a whole bunch of new members always on Black Fridays, both in July and in November. These guys are coming in and they see members like you, they see members like we had 400K club members in the last 3 months, which was fantastic. All of them got to hear in different ways. You have a more traditional approach, which was really flipping, and this was been basically part 1 and part 2 combined, and you're getting into part 3 and wealth transfers, we'll talk about in a second. But the main thing was, what tips do you have in terms of community management and community participation for new members?
I think the more engaged you are with the Facebook groups, the other thing, I'll add something to that also. What you see online is totally different than what I'm doing offline. And what I mean by that is my laptop's on a daily basis, Facebook's open. I'm constantly looking at the chatter that's happening, both on ECH as well as WTA, right? What I'm trying to say offline is I'm in regular contact with other 100K club members or people that are active in the group. So like, for example, Watchwinder Pros, Mike Hamill, constant basis. I'm talking to him, what do you think about this deal? What do you think about that? Michael Tabuski, right? Constant basis, we're going back and forth. Chase McDonald, I think he just became 100K, right? Constantly, we're going back and forth talking, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Have you looked at this? One of the most important things that you talk about all the time, and I've seen this in real time, and Mario Martucci also pounds on this a lot as well. WTA is a safe space, right? So when we go into all these other groups, truly they're looking at your wallets. I mean, the more you spend, the nicer you are, the nicer they are. The second you stop spending or you ask for advice, all of a sudden they call you, you're trying to fish, you're trying to do this, you're trying to do that. It's like, well, come on, you were my friend yesterday and all of a sudden I'm asking you questions today and something's up, right? So one of the things I've said a lot is the Watch Trading Academy is Watch Trading Association. I mean, it's really the friendships that we have. And a lot of these guys that I'm in contact with on a daily basis, it truly has nothing to do with watches. It's all about what's your insight, what's the process, what's working for you.
I mean, you would hang out anyways, like meaning
Exactly.
outside of just watches, you would hang out, have a beer or do whatever instead of just thinking
Right.
of it as just like, if we're doing business, we'll meet each other. If we're not, then we're not talking.
Yeah, and other groups aren't like that. Other groups you truly feel different, right? And the other thing that you guys do really nicely is you weed out the bad characters. And I've dealt with some over the years, and I think sometimes you'll see the members no longer a member of WTA, and there's a reason for that, right? So
yeah, we kick people out. I wish we didn't have to, but unfortunately, the only way we can keep the integrity of what you're talking about, or at least attempt to keep it, because it's trust me, it's a challenge by itself to one, identify people, especially those that aren't speaking up, right, and being clowns. The ones that speak up, the circus clowns, you can get rid of very easily because they speak up and you can see who they are. Like, that guy's a clown. But the guys that don't are the dangerous ones, right? The guys that hide behind a username and then kind of try to snipe people into like deals and things like that. But we still try to find them, and we rely on our community to identify them and be like, hey, this guy looks weird, he's selling a pipe dream or he's trying to fish for something, and we're very quick at taking action. And sometimes we're basically like the outcast group in the watch world because of this very same concept that it's almost like saying like, hey, there's a bunch of thieves and the honor amongst thieves is you don't screw each other, but you screw everybody else. And we're like, well, we don't want to be part of that, and we don't care. And they don't like to hear that. They're like, well, you have people that we could sell to. And I'm like, I don't really care. That's not the point. But to what you're saying, I think it's very true that, and I've tried to emphasize this a lot for people, is that when you go out in the real world, you're met with people constantly trying to take from you. Like, I have people that I know that literally live maybe 20 minutes away from me that I've done probably $3 million a quarter in business with, like buying very large dollars. And I trust to wire money. I don't have a single problem. But like, is there ever a happy new year? Is there ever, let's hang out? Like they live like an hour or 20 minutes away, and I can guarantee you they've made at least over 100 grand just off of selling me shit, right? But do they come and hang out? Do they want to? Do they care to? Would they text me for advice for a car? Sure. Would they text me to go hang out? Zero interest, right? And so, and then I have other friends that I've done a couple of deals with that probably have very little monetary value, but still enjoys talking watches with and just bouncing ideas off of, and probably do very little business with. But I think the thing that's important to note is that there is a difference between the watch world out there and the internal learning watch world we've created. And I think that people sometimes take time to warm up to that. When they come into the community, they go, oh, this is another watch group. Everybody's aggressive, trying to big stuff. And I think they misunderstand when students kind of jump at them and go, stop asking stupid shit and start, and then they go, oh, this is the same because people are aggressive here. But they don't realize that this is the way we keep our community clean, basically, is by focusing on learning and not so much on the deals and the money and things like that people constantly
Well,
look at every opportunity to sell something.
well, that's another thing. I mean, a lot of people, they sign up for the courses, they watch the first video, and then they start asking questions, right? So a lot of times you guys shut them down, is go back to the course. You've already paid for it. You might as well listen to it, right? So you kind of learn that initially, but once you go through that, then you come back for you talk about this all the time, mastery, right?
Mhm.
I think the course gives you mastery, and then the more you practice, you just become better and better at it.
Yeah, so you've gone through all the courses pretty much, right? Part 1, 2,
Mhm,
3,
mhm.
and recently joined Wealth Transfer. So
Correct.
tell me, you were sharing some feedback about Wealth Transfer in Part 3 with me earlier. Tell me about your progression through kind of the learning. When did you jump on Part 2, Part 3? What was the trigger that made it okay for you to, I tell people it may seem at first like it costs a lot of money to join one of these courses because, when you're coming into this world, it seems expensive. 2 grand seems like a lot until you start to wire 100K for watches, things change in your mind. But
Right.
tell me a little bit about your own progression into the different parts of Watch Trading Academy and what you enjoy best about each.
So part one, sure. So part one was sign up July of 2019. I quickly learned that I needed part two. And at the time, I remember part two had the list of 10 watches that Cal recommends, right? And I mean, right now I'm past that, but I still go back to those, like the Speedy Moon watches. At the time when I got the first Omega Speedy Moon watch, I'm like, this is shit. This is a crap watch, right? But it makes money. There's a crowd out there and people love it, right? Right now, I think I have like 6 of them. They make money. So who cares what I like, right? I like you say this all the time. I like the money better, right? So,
Story
so
of my life, dude. I keep getting 5711 Paddocks and I hate them to death. And I'm like, they keep making money. So I'm like,
yeah, they
whatever.
keep making money. So yeah, so part two was really, the reason I got that was to get that list of 10 watches. And I think out of the 1, 2, 3, I think part two is by far the better one. They have different things, obviously, different reasons. Part three is more of the investing side of things. The one criticism or feedback I have, part three for us, you need to play with bigger money and do more of investing mindsets, right? So just last week, you mentioned a specific Rolex. I think one of the members asked you on one of the calls, what's
Or a cheaper one. Yeah.
the cheaper one in the like 15 or the 10 to 20,000 range? What do you recommend? And you said tag me in the group and you mentioned it. And interestingly, the second you mentioned it, a bunch of us went out and I actually picked up one as well. So that's great, right? But most of the hunt list is a little bit on the higher end. So you kind of build your capital to get to that point. And so yeah, so 1, 2, 3 is really good. I've done, so I think the other thing that's totally underrated that you guys don't talk about as much is the mastermind. Everything I do on a weekly basis, I look forward to your calls. I tend to do the ECH ones here and there, but the WTA ones I do religiously. So I'm in Irvine, California. So 5:30 p.m. every single Monday. I listen in and just the information you share is just beyond good. Like, I mean, it's really, really great information. So the masterminds are great. And then recently I signed up to the advanced wealth transfer. And I'll tell you why I did this, PJ, and this is kind of selfish. The other person I want to highlight here is Alyssa. Alyssa is truly looking out for your best interest. And you defer to her a lot and you say, talk to Alyssa, she'll know what you want. She does not do a sales job. She doesn't do an upsell. It's really, you're going through this progression. This course is too early for you. Just make sure you go through this next step before you look into this other course. And I've seen that firsthand. So thanks to her for doing that. So when I signed up for advanced wealth transfer, Alyssa said basically it's the next step. And the reason I did it was to be able to come to Florida and see you guys. The first get together you guys had was I want to say it was May of last year, end of May of last year, right? Right after the COVID stuff kind of got lifted, right? So it came in. May was my best month last year in terms of the volume that I did, and it was directly related to coming down and seeing you guys and seeing all these people in person. I mean, we communicated via Facebook, but being in the same room with you guys and just the camaraderie and the friendship and all that. So that sparked an entirely different level of motivation for me, right? And immediately when I came back, I did the most deals, and a lot of it lingered throughout December as well. And then,
Success is contagious, right? When you're
oh,
around
it's
people who
amazing.
are doing, yeah, I keep telling
Yeah.
people to join these events and just come and see people in person
Yeah.
because it makes everything real. You know, like it's like, hey, I have all these things in my head, and it's like, no, it's real. Like this is what
Right.
it is.
And you
And
bounce
people just
ideas
don't
off
get that sometimes.
yeah, and you bounce ideas off all these other people that are in the same boat as you are, right? And quite frankly, seeing you in person, and you were generous enough to let us into your man cave that second day. I mean, that was just like you're in Disneyland. You're like, oh my God, this is real. It's not fantasy. And you mentioned it in one of your social posts the past few days. It's like real world versus the gaming world, right? I mean, you're living it. And we get to see that by way of association and talking to you and seeing what you're doing. So it just put it into perspective. It was real. So when I did that, I tried my best to try to come to the next one. So I kind of negotiated with Alyssa back and forth, and she's like, yeah, you can do that. And then she was, when I was there, your second day you had AWT, so advanced wealth transfer. And I said, I haven't signed up for this. She's like, well, if you do the next one, you can come to the conference again. So February, I'm coming to see you guys again. And I kind of use that as a bargaining chip. But I'm halfway through that advanced wealth transfer. And what I love about that is in all your other courses, you're very humble. You don't talk about specifics of what you're doing. I think AWT, what's really amazing to me is you're basically pulling back the curtain and giving us exact numbers on how you're going about building your empire, or you call it institution. And that's very, very inspiring, right? So putting that into what we're trying to do on a much smaller scale, or hopefully a couple years from now, or couple
Just as
decades.
big. Let's go. I'm waiting.
Yeah.
I need
So
more of you guys to get over here.
but it's awesome. I mean, just the exposure you're giving us in that course is. I was talking to another member a couple nights ago, and he's like, "Is that worth the? I think it's like 5,000 or so." I'm like, "Absolutely! Like, don't even think about it. Just hearing what PJ is doing is like beyond worth it."
Well, you know, if you, I always share, I'm very transparent in my stuff, and sometimes people misunderstand that I do, there's a line between business and reality, right? In good business, even though someone's might misconstrued it, still doesn't change the fact that it's still good business. So
Mhm.
I usually share this example and we'll kind of wrap it up. But you know, when I buy a car from someone, like I bought a million and a $1.7 million car from someone. And you know, the argument someone made is, well, that guy paid 1.5 for the car. And I argued that, well, yeah, but the car's worth 2, so it's still a good deal to me.
Mhm.
And some people can't get over that fact that, like, oh, well, you made this, and their value of that is different. They go, well, you did this and you made 150,000 off of me by just making these 3 moves. I feel like that's a lot. You should make less.
Mhm.
But who are we to tell someone what they should make? And is that guy going to benefit when I sell the car for 3 million?
Mhm.
No. So why does it matter? Like, as long
Right.
as you understand the numbers, like if you paid 10,000 for a watch that you can resell for 12 and you're confident in that formula,
Right.
then it doesn't matter that the person sold it to you paid 4 or 3, or they had a craft in getting this at 5K because you couldn't get it at 5K at that moment, right?
Right. Right.
So through experience, we all get things and we're able to win or navigate certain tools that give us bigger margins. And
Right.
I think sometimes people confuse the two. You know, they go, because you made X amount of money, that means you ripped someone off. And my argument is, well, what if they made money too? Then why did they get ripped off? You know,
Right.
and I think that a lot of times members sometimes, this is why I always talk about emotion. If you've gone to wealth transfer, you understand that. But I always talk about emotion is the biggest enemy to this line of work, because it's basically focusing on what does it mean to me,
Mhm.
not really what the data is, you know, like, does it
Right.
fucking matter or not? Doesn't matter at all, you know, like, so a lot of times people don't take that self accountability, and because things don't work out for them the way they want to, then they quickly look for a way to blame the action of something else on what happens, you know.
Right.
And so that's kind of just, but you know, a big thank you to you for coming on with me and talking to
Thank
our
you,
members
PJ.
about this stuff. I want to encourage every member to go ahead and reach out to Mark, connect with him. He's just a great influence in the community and a great opportunity for you guys to see a guy that's gone through all the trenches. And again, I want to bring up something you said real quick. You said part 2 was the one that gave you the most power and nuggets, you know?
Mhm.
And this is why it's so important to look at your story, because it's a progressive one. It's
Mhm.
one where a person went through part 1, took action, go through part 2 fairly quickly, and found his niche in part 2 based on his capital. as you evolve with more and more capital, you'll find part three to be more leverageable for you. And then eventually, you know, the wealth transfer course. But the point is the education always comes first, the action comes after, because there is a time between when a person learns something and a person has enough confidence to take action on it. So we all learn new things, but we have to believe in them to take action.
Exactly.
And often if we wait too long to learn, we misunderstand that there's another 6 months coming before we actually take action on what we learned.
Right,
And so we
right.
place ourselves at an even greater disadvantage. So Mark, thank you for joining me today on this
Thank you,
100K Club
PJ.
interview. And congratulations again on this milestone. Next is the 250K for you, and the next 500K, and then a million.
Hopefully,
So
that's the goal.
I believe it. I'm sure you'll do it. I'll see you in February. Thanks again for joining me.
I appreciate you, PJ.
Else,
thanks for everything you've done.
and to everyone else, guys, this is possible. Another proof, another person. So who will be next? Thanks again, guys. See you
Thanks
next time.
again, PJ. I appreciate you.